beatbox for you while you do the welcome one, welcome. I can't beatbox for shit. So if you know how to beatbox,
I mean, I can do the bit where I go.
okay, there we go.
There you go.
Do welcome
There you
on
go.
and do that.
There you go. Welcome one. Welcome all to the None of Our Business podcast. Joe Mama is not here, but have no fear. Your other hosts are. We got C4,
C4,
Dynamite Explosive,
yeah,
C Money,
C money,
C-section.
See, that's Joe's
my.
idea.
Yeah. He's got a couple of nicknames.
See these nuts.
I'm Philly Phil,
Yeah.
Philly-matic, philosophy, philanthropy,
Yeah.
all of those things. And today we have an awesome guest,
Oh, you're
a
too
longtime
Yes, we
friend
do.
of mine,
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Merenbach.
Hey,
Hi, everyone.
Clap, 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 clap,
Yeah.
clap,
Here,
clap,
I'll
clap,
also
clap,
bless some
clap.
clapping. There we go.
And this is going to be good because Andrew himself also wants to start a podcast. So
Yes.
and yeah, it's be on the lookout for
Mhm.
that.
We said, and I wasn't paying attention to anything Philly said for the past 5 minutes, including the intro. So you said Joe wasn't here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
So as we all know, Keenan is up to no good as always.
Yes, I am.
He doesn't care about anything, but it could just
Nope.
be that you're hungover, Keenan.
I'm ridiculously hungover. I didn't go to bed till 4:00 this morning. I woke up at 11.
Did your butt hurt?
Thankfully, no. It
Oh,
wasn't.
my.
It wasn't sore. There was nothing sticking out of it.
Okay, that's good.
That's always a
good.
plus.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
Evidence.
throat's a little sore, but I don't know what that is.
Wow. Let's not
It was the alcohol, though. I
let's
swear.
not jump to any conclusions.
All right, you
But-
might want to see a doctor on that.
Okay, yeah. Well, are you a party person yourself? Do you go wild and crazy back in the day or currently or?
I wish I had some stories to tell,
Yeah.
but I'm one of these milk toast people that never
Milk
got very
toast?
crazy at a,
What's the
at a
milk
party.
toast?
Yeah.
Is
But-
that toast you dip in milk?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
I never heard that term before.
I'm basically boring.
Oh, okay.
boring.
Milk toast
Yeah.
is boring.
Was it a party last night?
It was.
though?
It was a Halloween themed party.
Mine too. Yes.
Yeah.
So I had some friends of
Wow.
Oh,
ours.
so you do.
Yeah.
See, so you
What'd
do
you dress
party.
up as?
As my dad. I
Hey.
wore-
Okay.
wore a bathrobe.
Yeah,
bathrobe.
Oh, my
there
clothes,
it
yeah.
is. There
Yeah.
it is.
I think you
It's
can
better than
pretty
my
do-
costume.
I think you can do a good Bob Ross if you wanted to. 'Cause
Hey,
you got the
I
hair.
heard that.
Totally
You got the
good.
hair. You got the stash. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I think you can do it. You pull it
Yeah.
off pretty well. Or a really cool 70s rock star from some band. Like,
Oh, I like that.
You totally passed for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
like the dude
like
from
Chicago or
what's that one?
from-
Hold the line.
Oh, yeah. Love
Toto.
it.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
Toto,
yeah.
Or was it the group who did Blinded by the Light?
Blinded
Oh,
by
yeah.
the light.
Yeah. You totally be like a
look for them.
guitarist or lead singer on like American Bandstand. It's crazy.
Hey,
Oh, that's funny.
it's
Yeah.
a good look, man.
Oh,
It's a good-
thanks.
I can't pull it off, man. I've actually thought about growing
That's
a
because
stash.
he's too damn sexy. You
He is.
You can't pull off anything else because you're too sexy for it.
I'm too sexy for a stash. No, man.
But you do part. So you do party, and you had a
I
party.
can. Yes.
Well, you go to mixers and you
Yeah.
you mix it up. You
Like
talk to
meetup
people.
mixers or
Well, my wife and I, Liz, shout out to Liz.
Yo,
if you're
Hey, what up,
listening.
Liz?
Yeah, we host dinner parties every month and occasionally get a little rowdy.
ooh, like an eyes wide shut kind of thing.
Sadly,
What?
or maybe happily, not quite that level.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yet,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we're working on it.
Fidelio.
Yeah, and then friends will invite us over sometimes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I was listening to the party you guys are discussing
Well,
earlier.
yeah. So
Never did anything like
I
that.
can't reveal too much because
Sure.
some of them listen to this, and
Yep.
I don't want to give out major stuff would happen. They know what they did.
That's
But-
almost like already saying it.
Well, I know pretty much, but I wanted to
I hope
admit
no one
though,
gets in trouble.
I'm very jealous because I go to a lot of these parties hoping that something that wild and crazy would happen to me. I may get a black eye from the girl's boyfriend, but
Oh,
you know,
He's like,
it's
I
worth
want
the
to be that
sacrifice.
mistake
yeah.
that the girl wakes up and says, God, why did I do this?
Yeah, looks at me
Mm.
like, oh man. And I'm like, hey, you seem like you liked it last night, but
Oh, wow. He said it.
but no, it was. I did actually mention to two people that were there with me, and they're gonna hate me because they listen to this constantly.
Oh boy.
And I'm gonna blame this on the hungoverness, but I forgot the names. It was
Well, we shouldn't throw out any names.
but they listen to podcasts all the time.
Oh
okay,
my.
but we're not like getting anything like But we're not like making any like.
Oh, I was gonna give a
bad
shout out to
karma.
them.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
yeah.
well, never mind. Philly says
No,
fuck you, and just want to give you a shout out.
I just didn't know where you were going with that. But if you're talking about who I think you're talking about, then yeah, a big shout out to Liz and Jeff.
Liz and Jeff, yeah. So I'm hungover, so I'm sorry I forgot your names. But I was talking I was talking to them last night.
This is just Keenan in his element.
Pretty much, I was saying to them how it kind of sucks that everybody was with somebody that night. There was not a lot of single people, and here I am as a single dude trying to mingle and meet, but you can't really do that.
Keenan, I'm single now, so we can go out and we can tear it up.
Oh, okay. Well, he did tear it up on the dance floor, though.
That's
I have
right.
to admit that.
Oh, I couldn't envision that.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the party started.
He does.
This is true.
And see, it's always a good time with Keenan Duncan, and Philly gets the party started.
There we go. You know what's happening.
It was fun. It was actually.
We're going to be like Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson in Wedding Crashers.
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I remember karaoke with you, Phil.
Oh, you did that?
We did go to karaoke
At Brass
together.
Monkey?
No, what's the name of that? Okay,
in Palms.
so just a little background. Andrew and I have been longtime friends because we were together in a Masonic lodge, right? Way back in the days.
This is not the National Treasure Masonic Lodge, right?
No. This is more like the chicken and turkey dinners Masonic lodge, which I love. I've met some great people there.
Yeah.
You know,
Me too.
How was the chicken?
I'm just trying to the food was always generally pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to it's like not all this Illuminati shit
it's
that
the
people make it out
taxpayers'
to be,
money.
You know what I mean?
I'd be a wealthy man. If
Exactly. And so to make the point, at some point we had a social night here and there, and one of them happened to be at a karaoke lounge in Culver City.
Cool. Okay.
It's like a Culver City one. I think it's like Motor 22 or like something.
Yeah, I know it had a number in it.
Yeah, it was like Route 66 karaoke or something.
Oh, okay, because there's a place called 77 Lounge.
Yeah, no.
But
so that's right across the street from the Culver City.
Okay.
No, this is like further down.
Oh, okay.
Like on National, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then never mind.
Yeah, it's like a karaoke lounge, and we all sang Bohemian Rhapsody together.
Oh, you did?
All-
It's fun.
A group of Masons just jumped up on stage and sang Bohemian Rhapsody.
I think anybody, or you're just surprised that Masonry people.
No, it was just cool because
okay.
at that point it was one of the first social nights in a while that lodge had put together, which you would think there would be more of, but yeah,
I had a good time that night. That was fun, and Phil gets up on the up front to do his song.
Yeah.
And he actually comes down off the stage.
Oh, God.
And
he gets strangers dancing on the floor.
Don't do that.
I think there was this little old lady or something.
This old lady?
Dancing, and
the old ladies love me.
Did you break her hip?
No,
afterwards. Kidding.
But you have that charisma. You just get it going, man.
He does. And are you a dancer yourself?
I'm not good, but I love getting out on
Okay.
Andrew's down for anything.
Oh yeah, nice.
I mean, if I remember correctly, you consider today was a good day to be a masterpiece of anthropology, don't you?
That is such a good memory. Yeah, I really actually I appreciated Ice Cube's album "The Predator" from an anthropological viewpoint. My career is cybersecurity, but my degree is anthropology.
Okay,
and I felt there was a lot. So let's talk anthropology real quick. Anthropology is the study of what makes us uniquely human.
Mm-hmm.
It, in particular, my specialty, my major was one of several subdivisions, and this one is cultural anthropology.
Oh, okay.
And socio-cultural anthropology, we study society. What things do humans like to do? What do they not like to do? What laws and regimes do they have to live under? How do they live? What do they eat? How do they treat each other?
Okay.
And there's a lot about how people are treating each other.
And how do you find this stuff out? Because there's no, I mean, like I'm talking before written dialogue was made. How do you see in the broken clay that there was like spousal abuse or something like that?
Oh, well, it is really hard to know for sure in a lot of cases. So let me put that out there. We use something called abductive reasoning or retroductive reasoning. You've heard of deduction, like Sherlock Holmes type thing. You have induction, deduction. This is kind of its own thing. It's like the best guess based on available evidence.
And how much do you need? Do you need different points, or just one thing you see and like, oh, that's what it is?
Well, we develop a working theory. If
Okay.
we're, I appreciate, Phil, you said practicing anthropologists. It puts me on the spot. We're all kind of students of
And
the
now
world.
I'm grilling you a question.
But what I meant by that, without belaboring your point too long, was just that you actually, like, on occasion, you make projects out of things.
So you have your own tools. You do your own archaeology, dig research.
Well, archaeology and anthropology are two different things.
Yeah, archaeology is another subset. For sure.
Yes, but you need those two together to come up with your hypothesis, right?
You might benefit from that. So if we look at to answer your question, like, how do you know there's spousal abuse? You don't for sure.
Okay.
So first we have what we observe about human nature, and we have the bodies we might find, like you've heard about Lucy and other skeletons. It doesn't matter if it's Homo sapiens, what we call, the anatomically modern human sort of thing. It could be Neanderthal. It could be one of these other species, or really anything that's kind of in the hominin family. We can kind of look at that and see, how the evolution of our modern humans occurred, and we can take stuff from the present and apply it to the past.
Okay.
We just have to be careful. So if we see someone has a skull that shows trauma, it looks like it might have been bashed in by a club or something. Well, we know that clubs were a weapon that were used back then. This probably wasn't an accident. This is probably a murder. But was it spousal? We don't necessarily know. But we can guess, like, based off of clay and food, and because they're garbage pits. We find so much from garbage, more from garbage, I think, in a lot of cases, than from the structures.
Because we just threw it on the ground, right? Yeah. We didn't really have a particular pile.
We still do that. Right. We just throw it on somebody else's ground.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Someone's going to find cigarettes 100 years from now, and they're going to say, or 1,000 or 10,000.
They go, wow, what is this person? He must have been a billionaire or something. It's like, no.
They'll find stuff, and they'll figure out what's the composition. These folks liked to smoke this blend of tobacco and this marijuana or whatever it is that people are using.
That I can understand, because I sometimes question, and I was going to hopefully do like a funny bit about how when we find certain artifacts, and this does lean more archaeology than it does anthropology, but in the sense of, like, we'll find an artifact and we'll admire and appreciate its awness of, like, this bowl was used for some sacrificial thing, and we come with its whole listing. We have pictures and diagrams and all that stuff. And then if you take a time machine and go back, you only find out that it was really just a toilet bowl.
Right. And that's the whole thing about this so-called abductive reasoning. We're making the best guess based on the evidence, but in the end, we're always informed by our uniquely human biases, which is kind of like the mind-blowing thing where we're applying our human biases to figure out what makes us human and how people were human, however you define that in the past.
Were we human, though?
Good
Could
question.
We do something else?
And without getting too far away from the point, though, why is it that you see Ice Cube's album, The Predator, as a beautiful piece of anthropology?
I feel
the rapper Ice Cube.
The rapper Ice Cube.
Today was a good day.
Yeah. His early 90s album, The Predator, I feel like what I'm hearing when I listen to it is struggle, is pain, is a world that I, from my admittedly privileged upper middle class background, have not been a part of, for better or for worse. And so it is a window onto another human's existence, a window onto another culture's existence. A group of humans he's representing, is what I'm hearing, a group of humans in a certain way and what they are enduring or have endured. And so it speaks in a way, the rhythm kind of amplifies a lot of what he's trying to say. But music has this effect, right? We've used music for thousands of years to communicate, to heighten moods, whether it's during religious services or whether it's during a rock concert. You get a mood, and he's communicating with the rhythms, from what I'm hearing, like anger and stress and oppression.
Okay.
That's a fact.
A lot of those artists out of Los Angeles during that time period, the gangster rap growth, showing what's going on in the community that most people may not know what's going on in the community because they don't live there or they don't have friends there or something like that.
He self-admitted that he wanted to be the journalist of his neighborhood.
I didn't know that myself. So thank you for schooling me. I love that.
And that's why I appreciated so much of the way that you saw it because that's exactly what he was going for. You know what I mean?
I sure hope so, because I want to make clear I can't speak for him. I very much want to be into nothing about us without us. You know, I wasn't a part of that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just what I'm perceiving and trying to put myself empathically as best I can to someone else's shoes.
Well, let's get Mr. Cube out here. Mr. Cube, can you come out here?
Yo, West Side Connect gangster.
Would you be really shocked if we had Ice Cube?
I would probably faint. I love Ice Cube.
He said, "I love you, Ice Cube."
It's like, well, we lost
Mr.
Andrews. We're just gonna have Ice Cube be the guest now. He'll wake up eventually.
Hey, one day we're gonna be able to do that, man.
One day.
I
One
hope
day.
so.
We're looking
That's
forward
great.
to it. Dude, I kid you not, as you brought this up, as I was walking down the street to get some chicken wings, no racial joke intended. But
Let me get this straight. You went out of your way to go buy some chicken, right? Is that
I might have chicken tenders to be specific.
Oh, okay.
But there was at this bar on the corner, there was a huge event going on. It looks like they closed it down. They're doing like a live podcast radio thing. So I can't wait for us to get to that moment where we can close down a whole bar.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Do a live podcast of our own and just have it looked like a huge party was going on.
Is that where all the old cars were? Because we passed a bunch.
Yes, and the old
all
cars.
the lowriders.
Here's the trippy thing. One of them is my neighbor. He was he lives across the street, and he saw me walking down. This happens to everybody I know. I don't notice them, but they notice me. I saw his car. I was like, damn, that car looks familiar, and it's really nice. So I was just focused on the car. And he's like, hey, Keenan. And I look up and I go, oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Even though you saw me walking down the street the whole time.
His piece.
I know. It's like, hey, we're from the same. I'm your neighbor. I'm your neighbor.
He said, "Oh, all right."
But he's cool because he literally watches the block. It's funny because I have two neighbors on the street. Even though I have another neighbor that's a cop, these other two neighbors, they'll sit on their porch and they'll watch till like 2-3 in the morning the street. Make sure stuff doesn't go crazy.
That is
neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
So is it
without being an official neighborhood watch? Yeah.
How did that come about?
Oh, it's the hood, so it's just naturally you have to have most areas, especially highly gang related areas, they'll always have somebody watching the street.
Right.
For this, it's probably that same mentality, or the people in their family have that mentality, so they bring that mentality to our block and they watch the block for the people in the block. Maybe not so gang related, but the mentality of that gang related element of watching the street to make sure nothing goes on is embedded in their system.
Yeah, on to that point, I went to a party like on the 19th or so. It was a birthday party. And at that birthday party, my ex's birthday party, and at that birthday party, there was a kid there who was from some South Central, like Los Angeles Latin community that actually all have a curfew at 9 p.m. Like everybody just knows not to be out in the streets at that hour.
Wow.
It's kind of just became cultural knowledge there. That you
There's
just
anthropology
exactly.
again.
Exactly.
Humans looking out for the group and humans imposing rules on the group.
Most of the group. We
There
do have
you
a few
go, there
white
you go.
people who moved into the neighborhood.
Hey,
they don't really care about.
Hey, let's keep in mind that I am 61% British Irish now. You're talking to me, and I can't talk to my boy Andrew like that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But they're friendly to my roommates, because my roommates, they look white even though they're half black and whatnot. But you know, they still, you know, they don't treat them like crap or anything. It's just but on that subject of the current of anthropology of us and how we share and do things, do you find it that might not be as difficult anymore, or may not go away, but have less interest in anthropology in the masses, because from the birth of the internet, us people have been documenting every single thing we do, that you don't need to do any crazy research to find. So as you said, an example, 100 years from now, they find a cigarette. You wouldn't need to do any crazy research because we've submitted everything on the internet that it's just there for you to just pluck and get your answer of what it was like during that time period when you found that cigarette.
That's such a great question. My feeling on the matter is it's actually only going to get more relevant.
Okay.
With regard to researching the past, we do discover new things all the time, but yeah, technically it's going to be a dwindling supply. And honestly, university research grants are limited. You're sending people to another part of the world, possibly for weeks or months, to dig things up, deal with international politics and tensions. Possibly there's factionalism locally. There might be, you might be a war-torn region. Even if not, the government might have concerns about the stealing of antiquities.
Yeah.
And you have to have people who know the local language,
Yes.
and you have to make sure you're treating their artifacts and their dead with care, because you may have the descendants of the people whom you're digging up there, and they may have certain expectations around how things are handled. So this is very expensive, and there will continue to be a place for it. But anthropology isn't just about the past. It's a popular thought, because what comes to mind is Indiana Jones. You're going in a temple and you're running from boulders and you're taking artifacts and
you look like Harrison Ford.
Right,
Man,
exactly.
Don't tell me that never happened to you. Come on, there's got to be at least one boulder that chased you down somewhere.
I wish I had a story like that. But in reality, we can practice anthropology, and we do, in fact, a lot of time, just in our daily lives. A professional anthropologist, not me exactly, but someone who's paid by university to study anthropology, could go into a modern workplace or go into maybe political offices to learn how people are interacting. They could go into, you might study modern supermarkets and how people. So
okay, I think I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is part of applied anthropology. We can figure out how our rules, how our norms shape the current society, and maybe we can draw something to apply to the future based on that. One very popular study involved two ethnic groups in New York, and they always felt the other group didn't like them, and in reality, it was they had certain cultural norms surrounding their greetings, their small talk. And so you actually had an opportunity here for the brokering of intercultural understanding based on a study of how people were just acting in convenience stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is I rarely tell people this, but for the short time that I went to college at SMC Community College, I took linguistic anthropology actually, and I remember reading in the book that the books that they'd given us for class, one of them had a section where there's a culture that generally tends to bow their head sort of slightly down instead of, when people say what's up in American culture, you kind of throw your head back a little like what's up. And there's another culture where that's actually a threat, and the more commonly accepted norm is to bring your head down a little in the opposite direction when you're saying what's up. And so that kind of thing can lead to a lot of misunderstandings culturally. And you're right. You could literally practice it anywhere. For my paper, I had to write on the idea of being bilingual. That's how I wanted to graduate, and what that does to your identity as a person, the way you experience life. So no, anthropology is everywhere. But I do have a question about cybersecurity, since I know this is really your
bread and butter.
Okay, for a long time I've been concerned about the way I use my phone, but the thing is I'm too lazy to go and make the effort to get like a VPN. But you, as a professional, do you have a VPN on your phone?
I do not.
Okay, so I don't feel so bad.
You removed it, or I thought do they come with VPN?
No, they have like the access to, right? But they don't.
I do not currently have a VPN on my phone. I have not ever actually.
So the government can't find you, can they?
Well, VPN is, some people think it's a way to evade detection. And this is, honestly, here's another case for anthropologists. Not only do I think anthropology possibly has a future in helping humans understand each other and broker about, in this very polarized age of tensions, I think there's a chance for anthropology to really step in and help people understand each other. But there's also a chance to understand why we have this need for privacy. This is relatively modern, this idea of privacy. You go back to Europe a few hundred years ago, you had, I can't speak for all of Europe, of course, but you had one-room cottages where everybody slept in the same bed. Now, a lot of that was out of necessity, of course, but the point is people were not used to having privacy, their own room, their walls shielding them from their neighbors, and nobody really knew what was going on. And even if you go into a small town today in the US or elsewhere, everybody kind of knows everyone else's business. Right. It's a big city where we kind of really appreciate this anonymity and this privacy to such an extreme. So why do we want privacy? I think privacy is important. Here's the spoiler. I think it's important. Okay. I think it's valuable in this day and age, especially as our settlements, if you will, the places we live tend to get more crowded. I think it gives humans breathing space. It gives us a chance to experiment. I might say something aloud in private that would not be considered a good thing to say publicly.
That's what this podcast is for.
Right, fair enough. But the thing is, it doesn't mean that that's my permanent, unchanging opinion. Humans change with time. Our opinions change, our feelings change, our affiliations change. So we have our privacy as kind of a scratch pad, a place for us to jot down verbally ideas that come to mind. And then a few minutes later go, why on earth would I have said that? Yeah. You know what? That gives me some thought. I've got to revise how I'm thinking of this. So I feel like privacy serves a useful tool, as a way for us to kind of have our family and just our private space be an extension of our brains and our thought processes. Okay. So a VPN is useful from this perspective because we can achieve privacy against someone who might be listening in. The problem is that a lot of the paid VPN solutions, here's your technical answer, right, Phil. Yes. I used to say, my point is, I do have one. I got that from my mom. Shout out to my mom. Hey. Anyway, we have a lot of concerns, I think, in the security profession around VPNs funneling your traffic through one point. Okay. It's kind of like if all your people, all your wagon train in the Old West is going through a narrow mountain pass, that's the perfect time for bandits to attack you because you're going single file and you're going slowly up the hill. So this is a chance for VPN operators to look at your data. They may say, we don't keep logs. They may say, we have open sourced our architecture. They may, but it's kind of like, you still have to take their word for it ultimately. You can't see exactly what's happening while your traffic's
and that's the same thing you're doing with almost every other app anyways.
Right. Now, if you don't, I'm holding up my phone here for viewers just for effect, for whatever reason. If your ISP, your internet service provider, in my case, Verizon, you might have AT&T, T-Mobile, one of these other ones, they can look at your traffic. They, in fact, do look at your traffic. Whoops. In a lot of cases.
That's not good for me.
Yeah. All the porn I've been watching.
Hey, does it work for iPads too? Damn it.
Someone's always going to be able to look at it. And that's why a lot of us in the profession are big fans of end-to-end encryption. We want to, as long as it's going through the wire, as long as it's over the wire, we want to be encrypted, not have any places where it's completely plain text or visible. The idea is, if I go on my phone to a website that I know the government is, or someone who's listening in for whatever reason, is going to want to alter the information or just know that I'm going there, there are lots of ways they can get that information. One of them is by looking at my computer's got to figure out where to route the traffic. I'm not going to go into this because I know it's not the sort of podcast. We call this the DNS system. Okay. You talk about domain name service or domain name system, and the idea is it's like a phone book for the internet. Okay, so it's like let's say. Phone book. I'm dating myself right now, guys.
No. I build websites.
Yeah, I've seen a phone book before.
Squarespace has its own DNS server.
Yes, of course.
GoDaddy, all those. Yeah.
But using phone book as the analogy.
It's a good analogy. I understood it.
So let's go back to 1995.
For the young whippersnappers.
Going back to 1995, I want to call Phil here. And I don't have his phone number. I open up the white pages.
That was a thing.
And I'm looking, where is your last name? Okay, here we go.
If he's listed,
If he's listed.
There was a whole process to get listed on there, wasn't there?
And I dial the 7-digit phone number because there's no area code here that we need. We're used to just dialing it because we're local, right? And then, actually, I was in the Pacific Northwest back then. But anyway, so I figure out how to translate a name to a number. And that's exactly what the computers are doing. They're taking a domain name like philblanos.com or Keenan.com, and they're turning it into a set of numbers that we call an IP address, Internet Protocol address. This address is now able to be used by the computer, iPad, phone to connect to. The thing is, in getting that, doing that lookup, someone could say, oh, Andrew's looking up Phil's website. Even if the traffic is encrypted between my phone and his website, even if we have a mostly end-to-end encryption there, they can figure out there's a good chance he's visiting. There are 3 websites at this IP address. We know he's visiting one of them. And there's Phil, there's like, a meat packer in the Midwest. And, it's like you can they narrow it down. And of course, if they can see my DNS query, they know exactly where I'm. So this is one of our current debates, is how much to lock this down. So a VPN could help with that if you were worried about someone looking at your DNS traffic as well. But the VPN could also sell your data.
What would be the end all terrible thing of having all this not being monitored or let loose for them to take and use whatever information? Could they essentially wipe out my bank account or put lewd photos on my thing and get me fired from my job or something like that?
All that.
They can do all that?
Now, some of this is already, thankfully, mostly taken care of in 2019. It used to be, go back 5-10 years, most of the websites were not served encrypted. They were served over plain text. This means that anybody on the wire can see and alter what's going through the wire.
Is that what an SSL certificate
is? Yes. SSL is no longer used, and we now call it TLS.
Really?
But you can still find it.
The
probably,
nomenclature,
but it's still essentially the same technology, and we refer to it as SSL.
Yeah.
So, SSL, secure sockets layer, or TLS, transport layer security. And the idea is we are encrypting traffic between this device and this website or this other device. Actually,
so it shows you that that a person was looking at this, but doesn't say which person.
Right. So it can. Although if someone is able to monitor my phone and the traffic it's emitting, or my computer, they can see that I visited an IP address, and that's where they're not going to drain my bank account.
Right.
Thankfully, we've gotten past that for a lot of stuff.
So that could have happened in the past.
Yes, even just a few years ago. Like Squarespace by default, they offer Let's Encrypt SSL or TLS certificates, and so you get your traffic encrypted.
Yeah.
But someone with enough power, say a state actor, could still basically, when the DNS query is going through, we call it a query. When we're looking up in the phone book here, they could substitute Phil's phone number effectively with someone else's phone number. So when the computer connects, it goes over the encrypted connection to maybe the wrong site.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So this is one of these cases where if you can do that, you can cause massive damage. Maybe I do get sent to a different bank website that looks like my bank's website.
Yeah.
Now they've got my username and password.
And how do you counteract that? Because you can't go to court and say, I'm suing you for doing this, because it's who knows is on the other end doing that to you.
You'd have to figure out. Now, if it's the bank, you do have protections under the law, most likely. A lawyer could probably help you straighten it out in a lot of cases.
FDIC insured, all that. Yeah.
And we do, exactly. And we do have multi-factor authentication. I'll give a huge shout out for multi-factor authentication.
Right. Like when Google constantly asked me to
you're like
enter the 5-digit PIN. You're like,
it's annoying as heck. And that's why we got to make it easier.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility as an industry to make it easier for people to do this, because it's becoming imperative to help people keep secure.
Yeah.
And you know what? One of the biggest challenges is even when we implement these. Either of you on Twitter?
You know what?
I used to be
active on there a lot. I was actually doing really well. I found I mostly followed people I was interested in, and the whole point was it's just after the whole Trump thing, and I don't have any political stance on it. It just became a Trump show on Twitter.
Yeah, I hear you. But Twitter, for their multi-factor authentication, is using SMS, text messages to your phone.
Yeah.
This has been fine for a few years. It is definitely better than nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
The problem is someone can get into my bank account
through that
or my Twitter if they can hijack my SIM card.
What?
And if my bank uses SMS for the second factor,
Really?
and many do.
And I saw in a documentary, the hacker, it's like a Comic-Con for hackers in Vegas. This guy had a device where he can come pass by. He just walks past by you, and it scans your. I think it's. I'm not sure if it scans your phone. It scans like your phone or like your chip that's on your bank debit card or whatever,
Sure.
and get all your information.
Scary stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do. And a lot of it boils down to social engineering. You can't just do everything remotely. So to listeners out there, you don't necessarily need to worry unless you're very high profile about someone.
Run to the hills.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was going to be my next question was because I don't even think most people listening may even be familiar with VPN.
Or a lot of
network,
technical
So,
jargon.
Yeah. VPN encrypts your traffic. It makes it so it can't be seen inside. It's like having tinted car windows wherever you travel that are perfectly tinted. Yeah. And it means that when your traffic comes out, and it goes to its destination from a different endpoint. So like rather than Andrew's computer is visiting Amazon.com or eBay.com, right? It's instead it could be for going between computers too. Instead of Andrew is sending a file to Phil or Keenan, it's Andrew sending a file through a VPN that lets off in say another country. Let's say the UK or Luxembourg or something. And then if anybody wanted to actually monitor it, they'd have to have the ability to tap the line between Luxembourg or the UK and Phil's computer. And if Phil's using a VPN, we can set up a thing where the only exposed stuff is out of the country. So that has that appeal for people. It's like, oh, it's offshore. It's going to be safer because the U.S. government must clearly be. The thing is,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
We have the whole Snowden thing.
Oh yeah, what you were saying.
But what about real quickly? What about the Google stealth mode? I forgot what it's called, but where you do like
incognito.
Is that helping out with the whole traffic thing?
Maybe a little. Maybe
when you're watching porn.
Oh my. Well, the thing
we don't need to talk about what Keenan uses it for.
People can tell what you're doing online. It's really easy to fingerprint a browser.
Oh, it is.
And even if you're in incognito mode, if you have any plugins enabled in the incognito mode, they can still get an idea. It's all about statistics. Now you can like get it down to 1 in 7,000 chance this is Keenan visiting a website, and 1 in 5,000 chance that Andrew's visiting. They narrow it down. So incognito mode can help. But it's not the solution unto itself. It evolves as time goes by. There have been vulnerabilities found in it, and Google has fixed them. But it's not just like the U.S. government can be perceived often in public discourse as like an enemy. Oh, they're trying to view all our traffic. They're trying to invade our privacy.
Right, the Patriot Act and all that, right?
But really, it's international. Everybody wants everybody else's stuff.
Oh, so it's not just the U.S.
Right. The U.S. has had some of the best technology, I think, along with a few other big nations. And we cooperate with some of them, and we have not always cooperated as much with some of them, but they've all got a fantastic arsenal of tools and just techniques, not even necessarily shady stuff, just statistics type things that they can use to figure things out. So the thing is that there are those who will argue, well, we need the privacy to be safe from our own government in case our government ever goes tyrannical. I'm not trying to argue with any of these folks.
Sure.
But in my perception of reality right now is that it's not so much about me versus the government or me even versus other governments. It's going to be, what about other nations where there are private companies that want access to my data, and they maybe nudge their government to try to, use their tools to get something for them. There might be hackers or criminal elements that, again, they have a representation. Perhaps they have maybe they have dirt on a politician. They say, "Hey, get me your intelligence connection. I want to intercept traffic."
Which is why you meant like high-profile people should probably worry more about it.
Exactly. Us common folk don't need to care about dick pics being seen and stuff like that.
You can argue that. And that's the thing. I probably sound paranoid because most people come from the standpoint of, well, Andrew, what could you possibly have, even as a cybersecurity professional, that would be of interest to people? And if I certainly don't have anything, they might say. And the thing is, that's totally true. If you do not have something that would be of that much interest to a hacker or someone who's extorting you. Suppose you have intimate pictures, but you're like, I'm a free spirit. I don't care if you share that on whatever. Yeah. Well, if they can't hurt you, they don't have power.
Okay.
But
the iCloud leak, remember, with all the celebrities?
But if you're a celebrity,
if it affects you, it could affect other people. It could affect people you know and respect.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And as time goes on, the techniques get better and better and more accessible to the general public. So that means that something that is accessible right now to a criminal organization elsewhere in the world or another government elsewhere in the world could be in the hands of your neighbor tomorrow.
Why is that? Why is it getting better and better? Is there we just need is it just our natural need to have it faster and easier and all this stuff? Or couldn't we just stay with whatever the technology is at our current time? Like, does it have to continue to get more elaborate, more easy, more?
Well, I think you were saying like it's getting easier for criminals to become just literally your next door neighbor as far as digital security, because
we're making it easier for them to do it, right?
We can.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just curious why. I'm trying to see if I can phrase the question as like.
I think I understand what you're saying. If technology stops, innovation stops in a lot of sectors. So technology keeps moving, but as it moves, it leaves traces, residues. We've got this year a new release of, say, a particular operating system, a new version of Windows comes out, a new version of Mac OS.
Is that why it's always important to update your OS?
Well, it can be, and that's part of the problem, because now instead of, say, 12 or 14 versions of a particular product, a particular operating system, a particular piece of hardware, an iPhone, an Android phone. Instead of a certain number of versions, we have that number plus one. And every version is going to have bugs. Every version is going to potentially be hackable to someone with enough computing power and money and time. The thing is, once the hardware comes out, it's frozen in time.
Right.
For the most part.
Okay.
And once the software comes out, for the most part, it's frozen in time. They'll release a new version to fix it, but anyone with the old version is still vulnerable. And the new version, meanwhile, will have vulnerabilities of its own. So then what happens year on year is more and more people are using technology. More and more people maybe upgrade to new technology, which helps solve old bugs that have been discovered. But bugs are being discovered in old and new all the time. So this year we might have, 10 more bugs in a piece of software we already had 100 bugs on last year. And now next year there'll be 20 more that get discovered or something. So it's like, we will never stop discovering these. So you become more vulnerable unless you stay current as time goes on. Additionally, since more people are using different pieces of tech, they become more high profile. We used to argue as kids, Mac's safe from hackers, Windows has all the viruses.
I know that
right?
argument. Yeah.
I used to be that really annoying kid who was like, I've got a Mac, everybody.
You're a Mac boy?
Okay. I used to be. Yeah. Now I use Windows at home.
Yeah,
for anyone who wants to hack me.
Convert over to the dark side.
Right. But the thing is that in the end, Macs became a lot more vulnerable once they became higher profile. And so it was the people who were saying, it's just nobody uses Macs, they're not worth hacking. There was truth to that as well, because, Apple's a public company. They have to keep up with what they perceive their shareholders and their customers and the public and just the company at large where they want to take their products. They have to release new stuff. It's not like we're refining the OS until it reaches perfection and then we stop.
Because it never reaches perfection.
The needs of people change, exactly. So there's always going to be new bugs introduced. And because more and more people are connected now, we're all more vulnerable than ever. And we're all more reliant.
Well, yes, that reminds me. So how do you feel about like the user agreement and the way that's...
That's a great question, right? The user agreement's an interesting one because I feel like it protects the companies, but doesn't protect us.
I check that box because I can't use the software until I agree. And it's like, well, what's the point? Because what's the point of even giving me a damn option to disagree if I can't use the
the
software?
illusion of control.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays you sign up for a website and it's like, you agree you've read our terms of service. It's like, 40 pages and 9-point font, all crammed onto one page.
Right.
And I think that this is also a problem that affects us is we don't know exactly how vulnerable we are, because not only could our data be accessed by people we don't want to access it, but it could be, but we might not have a recourse. Where in the past, if I entrust someone with something, maybe I'm not a lawyer, so I can't speak from a legal standpoint, but I might expect that they have a requirement that they owe me something. It's a verbal contract. It's still a contract. But because everybody's covering their behinds now, I might be out of luck.
Because they'll say in the fine print, you cannot sue us. And then you signed it. It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Arbitration is a problem. Actually, if you go to work for companies, in a lot of cases, you have exactly the same type of end user thing.
Yes.
I've worked for a company or two that's made me agree to binding arbitration. And it's really interesting because I don't care. What do I have to lose? If I get messed over by the company, what am I going to do? I'm going to move on and take my skills elsewhere. I don't want to sue them because there's not much they could do that would be worth my time. But for somebody who's here's maybe a little bit of anthropology and sociology again, someone who's in a more vulnerable position, someone who is more easily replaceable. Maybe their role isn't as specialized. Maybe they're more vulnerable from their position in society, even if they're a specialist with a very unique role. Either way, they could have their whole career upended if they don't have the ability to land on their feet as easily as I do, which is something that, if I have it easy, I take it for granted for the most part. So these people might be SOL from one of these agreements. It puts them at a disadvantage. And I think it's something I would like to see toned back a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any particularly what's the word I'm looking for? Layman tips for somebody, like, should we be erasing our history regularly? Does that help at all? Cookies and things like that?
I love that question. And no, I will not fix your computer before you ask.
But because he has a lot of porn on his computer.
No. I just mean as a general practice, sort of, how you can practice good health with fitness.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Well, doesn't it slow down the computer to some degree if it has to upload that whole entire history? I thought on a fraction scale, your computer kind of slows down trying to upload that history and your cookies and stuff.
I think in the past, this was more the case than it is today. And right now, I think if you erase your history, do it with the mindset of, I expect someone to be looking at this and I don't want it there. Or I want to be able to search my history. There's a legitimate reason. I want to search it.
Right.
And I want it cluttered. Right. Of course.
But then somebody else comes in and starts searching and presses the P, and then all of a sudden it's like
I actually I can be thankful that I don't have a porn addiction. I'm not saying that I have never watched it, but I have watched it. But thankfully I don't have a porn addiction.
As a part-time anthropologist, I don't judge.
I understand.
It's important to be relativistic about it. But as for tips, encrypt your hard drive. If you have a phone, turn on that passcode. If you have a computer, turn on disk encryption.
Now it's facial encryption or facial visual recognition.
Pixel 4 is going to suck. That's like their whole thing. It's just only face recognition.
Now you can get access to people's faces and you can find them pretty much anywhere. All you have to do
is create like a sort of overlay of someone's photo of their face. And
there's definitely going to be. You've heard of deep. This is another problem.
Deep fakes,
another.
Another
problem with tech though is when things start intersecting. We have deep fakes on one track,
which is so trippy.
Right. And we have phones on another that are using like facial recognition to unlock. Just for everyone out there, a deep fake is kind of like when I combine a photograph or a video of one person with attributes from another in a way that blends them seamlessly. So I can make it look like Barack Obama is and we can do it with audio too. So I can make it look like Barack Obama is saying something or doing something or saying something while doing something. Or I could make it look like George W. Bush is saying something or doing something or saying something while doing something, gesticulating a certain way, right? Yeah. So this basically turns video evidence and audio evidence and photo evidence worthless.
I know it's pretty wild.
Right. Yeah. So then we have to develop a science of identifying them, and it's going to be statistical. This is, some percentage likelihood this is a deep fake or not. But now we've got phones that can be unlocked, and it's like, okay, well, if it's unlocked with a picture, with a facial recognition. What if I just use a picture? Okay, we fixed that problem. Okay, what if I take a video of someone and I present that to the phone? Okay, maybe we solve that problem. So it's cat and mouse.
Yeah.
But what happens when it intersects with deep fakes? And then I can basically create effectively live, unique imagery of someone and always stay ahead of that cat and mouse game. I've got someone's phone unlocked, but you don't always have to worry about someone, again, on the other side of the world doing something. What about your neighbors, your roommates? If someone in your circle has something against you, I just heard one of these phones you could unlock by just holding it in front of someone's sleeping face.
Yeah. Oh, really? They someone did that and it actually worked?
Grab it.
Well, think about jealous girlfriends.
You don't have to have your eyes
jealous
open.
boyfriends.
Right. You don't have, it doesn't apply to all the phones. Some of them check for eyelids or whatever.
Okay.
But the point is, we're still very much in our infancy with biometrics. And once someone has your biometric information, they have it. Yeah. That's something like a password can be changed. A token, a hardware token, that might be a USB key that you plug into a computer of some sort. It can be replaced. It can be destroyed. The password can be forgotten. You can move on. But your privacy, if it's protected by biometrics, well, as soon as someone can replicate you to the satisfaction of whatever device is protecting your stuff, you're effed.
And those deepfakes, you can the way to get started, because I've seen a lot of them. And the fact that it's becoming easier to use. See, the trippy thing I find about the ease of technology and the accessibility is that it's so quote unquote easy that there's tons of people posting these deep fake videos that are looking really, really good, but the technology allows them to just press a few buttons and it all comes together. There's not a lot. You don't need to go to school to learn how to do a deep fake video.
Damn, it's easier than Photoshop.
It's very easy. And if you check out on YouTube, Bill Hader, who's a comedian at SNL, Arnold Schwarzenegger impression, it is trippy how you can see the transition when they do it. And they did one with Jim Carrey as Jack Nicholson in The Shining.
Oh my gosh.
And that was amazingly incredible. So I think I saw some of that online. It's really wild. And so it's probably where I was coming up with my question earlier about the need to make things so easy that anybody can do it and not realizing that might be a problem.
Right. Don't worry about a government internationally. This is a real risk. We do have to take into account, but most people are not going to be targets. But again, that technology, because technology moves so quickly, we end up creating tools that can be used for defense and offense. And if they're open source or they're leaked or someone just figures out how it works and creates their own, because programming's never been more accessible to the population.
Everybody's doing a program thing.
So you can create tools that will take advantage of bugs in a computer your neighbor or your roommate or your significant other is using, and hack their machine and find their deepest secrets that maybe they feel like they have an expectation of privacy about. So you got to worry about these techniques being available to the general public, and there's no way to really stop it, I think. The cat's kind of out of the bag. Information wants to be free, blah. But I'm not right now taking like an ethical perspective on everybody should be able to do everything. But it's just, that's how it's going to happen, because
naturally
you can't stop it. Our devices are very powerful. We're now carrying more power in our pocket than we would have on a desktop.
I know, back in the day.
Years ago, right?
Oh my
God. And so now, if someone wants to embarrass me, they can create a deep fake picture of me doing something horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I could lose my job over it.
And your wife could be like, "What? Why are you?
Right.
Why are you doing this?"
They
Like,
could try to sabotage my marriage, and it's my word against whoever's.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm on the back foot trying to prove that this is a deep fake, which is technology I don't know anything about, maybe.
Yeah.
And so it basically, people are suddenly exposed to things that put them in over their heads. Where you go back 50, 100, 200 years, it's fairly rare you're kind of in over your head.
Mm.
That might be, viruses ravaging the landscape, or, there might be wars going on, but overall, you kind of anticipate threats in your environment. Anthropology, again, where we figure out what things might affect us. We say like, okay, there could be famine this year, so I'm going to stock up on food. Or, it's going to be really cold this winter. Let's stock up on coats or blankets or whatever. But anybody could be hit at any time by anybody who's got even the slightest beef with them now. It's like where before you had to go out of your way, you had to exert physical effort to really harass or harm someone. Now, from an armchair with a cheap laptop that I can afford to throw away, maybe even, and get rid of evidence, I can go and, I haven't actually developed these skills, but someone could go and, damage someone else's reputation irreparably.
Mm-hmm.
So society has not caught up to technology, and technology keeps pulling ahead.
Right.
We're using computers and AI algorithms to kind of develop the next step, and it's accelerating in some areas what we're figuring out. Like you think about these microphones we're using; they might have parts in them that use metal alloys, a combination of copper and something else, or whatever. These are used on maybe integrated circuits and maybe the shell of the thing, so that if you drop it, it doesn't shatter, but it also doesn't dent. Computers are developing new alloys for us, things we had never dreamed of. And you've got to heat the metal to this temperature and cool it at this time and temper it this way. And then you use electrolysis.
When before it was trial and error.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So trying to stay on the same subject, how do you feel about, or what are your thoughts on using and the existence of the deep web?
Yeah, sorry, I drift a bit. Get into metallurgy here. The deep web and there's
something below that too, right? There's the deep web, and then there's like something like the deep.
I don't know, Keenan.
Well,
I know the deep web exists. Everybody knows that. I could have swore there was something after that.
So dark side of the moon.
Well, dark is the word I definitely would want to use. The dark web is effectively websites that you can't find very easily.
Yeah.
They're usually things that try to make sure you're using a special web browser.
Okay.
They're often selling things that are not legal in your jurisdiction. Maybe it's legal somewhere, but it's not legal where you are. So that's why you're going on the dark web. Okay. There are other reasons to go on the dark web. Maybe you're someone who's being oppressed by your government and you need a safe place to talk with other people like you. Maybe you have a particular gender or sexual identity or particular religious or cultural identity.
So it has some positives about existing, but it always existed, right? Since the creation of the internet, there was always a deep web?
Kind of. So deep web is a term I usually hear of things that maybe aren't always linked directly or indexed directly.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
meaning
always
that
existed.
Google's bots can't make it as a search result, right?
They can't, or they don't. The site owner doesn't want them to. That it's not linked to from anywhere because they crawl the web.
Right.
So like it was always the case that you might find a weird website that's at an IP address somewhere. Like if I go to
11.2.
Right, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Dot whatever without a domain name. Because they haven't bought a domain name. Yeah, it might be well hidden. And if they buy a domain name, like, mycooldeepwebsite.com, suddenly it's public. There are records of what's there. Meanwhile, because a lot of the time our internet connections are on IP addresses that change, these machine addresses change, it might be something hosted out of a dorm room or out of a lab or out of someone's home. And so, if they don't have a domain name attached to it, it can't effectively be crawled because it might be changing every 10 days or something. Because a lot of times our residential IP addresses, they change periodically just as part of the cleanup that the internet service providers do. And because they often, here's those end user agreements again. They like us not to be hosting websites out of our homes a lot of the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't like that a lot.
Oh,
Yeah. If you want to pay for a higher tier plan, they might be okay.
Oh,
with
Isn't
that.
that interesting?
Yeah.
That's like a whole. That's got to be some. Yeah, that's
There's a lot there.
wow. So
that's like
the
a
deep
whole
web,
thing in itself. Yeah.
it can be used as privacy then, right? The
It
whole
can
privacy
be.
we're looking for, it could be used in the deep web because
Yeah.
there's no way to track what you're doing, right?
Well, they can, if there's no domain name attached, it's harder to get a TLS certificate. That's this encryption for the
Right.
website. You're probably going to be doing one that's self-issued. And if you do that, people are going to get errors when they visit your site that tell
Yeah.
them it's not secure. And it's easy for someone else to impersonate you.
Oh,
What if you have
okay.
1.2.3.4 and someone wants to feed someone false information? They should be going to 1.2.3.5.
Oh.
You both have a self-signed certificate, as it's called, and the browser throws an error either way. So we get people used to clicking past the error, and suddenly they're actually making themselves less safe.
Okay.
So one of the nice things about this system is not only encryption, but if it's a website that's known, you end up with some authenticity, we call it. You kind of have a guarantee, not a perfect guarantee, because someone could still hack the website or the
Yeah.
hosting, but like you have an idea of where you're connecting to, and it's pedigree. But
There's a degree of trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did a GeoCities website back in high
Oh, yeah.
school. That's
Didn't we all?
GeoCities, wow.
so that still exists somewhere on the internet, right? And is that in the
Probably.
deep web or is that?
It's in
Some
the
peop-
archives.
Yeah, people have archived GeoCities sites. And the thing is, there's no guarantee it's there. People say the internet's forever, so don't put
That's not
something
true,
online.
right?
Right. If you want it to be forever, it's not. It's gone for good. If you don't want it to be forever, it'll be there. Someone's got a copy.
Okay.
So the general idea is don't treat the internet as storage that acts the way you want it to act.
Oh, okay. So if my website hasn't been accessed since high school, it could have been deleted by this time. right?
GeoCities has deleted all the websites. Someone tried to archive a bunch of them,
Yeah.
so you might be able to find it.
So when you say
same thing with
delete,
MySpace, yeah.
You can find Keenan is cool or whatever you called it.
it was
Yeah.
some weird movie review website. I don't
Love
know why
it.
I did it. Shout out to Asher Huey, but it was the question I was concerned about was like, so if information is put on this digital service and
Yep.
it's deleted, I thought that most information on any computer, any hard drive, anywhere doesn't necessarily get deleted.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like a very fine compression where it seems like it's deleted, but somebody can still access. Like if I had a hard drive,
Data recovery. Yeah, I've done that before.
yeah, but like for something that's like old, you
Yeah,
know?
we call the problem data remnants because there are bits of data that remain after erasing hard drives that are magnetic. But the thing is with SSDs, although when data is deleted, so solid state drives,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
SSDs
have
are
one
in a
in
lot
my
of modern
computer, yeah.
computers,
Mhm.
your iPhone, whatever. They are interesting because they're more robust. It's harder to destroy them. And when something gets deleted, it is deleted.
It is actually deleted. Oh,
But
yeah.
with a caveat.
okay.
They're also wired in a lot of cases to manage to like keep the finger on the pulse. Like, how well am I functioning right now? How am I functioning right now? When they detect that a bit of storage isn't actually functioning very well, like, I'm pretty sure the reliability of this sector isn't. When someone writes something here, they're not going to get the same thing back.
Okay.
That's bad. Of course, we want our data to have its strong integrity. I don't want my family, a photo album to have splotches in it because the files got corrupted.
Right.
So they rewrite themselves, like you get the data copied to another sector, and they do nothing with what's there. So if you look at an old SSD, what you'll find is that data that was deleted, really very well deleted, most likely, as my understanding. But if you look at the sectors that were remapped, you
Mhm.
might find a lot of data that has never been touched. It's like an archaeological dig site, anthropology again.
Yeah.
So-
Interesting. Okay.
But even though it's on a hard drive somewhere, if it was used in a server, it may well have been repurposed, destroyed, written over multiple times in the meantime. So even if the server that hosted your site is
Mhm.
still running somewhere, even if the disk is there, it may not be connected up. It may really not be recoverable.
So is the information that's going all across the internet and wherever it's stored or the clouds or anything like that, that's going to somebody's basically hard drive somewhere, whether it's a company or
there's a hard drive. Yep.
So so the internet is a physical data storage thing, right? Like it's
It is in a lot of ways. Everything has to be hosted somewhere,
right?
Somewhere, but it's a lot of services do delete stuff. You close your Squarespace account, Phil, and it could be that everything about your contents gets removed. Now, I suspect they probably do keep it for some amount of time, and it may not. They may say we'll keep it forever because we know that if we want to win Phil's business back, he may want to look at his old site, and it maybe doesn't cost us that much to store it. Right. But at some point, they may delete it. Maybe they have what they call data retention requirements, where they say after 2 years, anything that's inactive. So it could be gone. And with modern tech being very much cloud driven, where we're reusing infrastructure more heavily, you don't have like a server hanging out in the back room that's holding some old website anymore. It's all like modern hardware, and it's all hosting these sites. And they're jockeying for space. Someone leaves, maybe they do delete it. Now, the dark web is interesting because
that's after the deep web, right?
Yeah. So the deep web.
I was right.
Yeah.
Philly.
Well, so
fuck you.
They're both relevant, but they're different things to different people. If I'm, let's say I'm in a part of the world where I have to worry for my life. This is one of the big things in InfoSec, like human rights East or whatever. There are places, exactly, where I could be killed for expressing an opinion, or maybe I'm a journalist who's embedded, reporting on a war situation. I need an alternative way to communicate. Maybe I don't have a sat phone. I got to use some local infrastructure or something. Okay, the deep web, where we're just accessing like non-linked sites. My traffic is viewed. Remember, I can try to encrypt it. I can get it encrypted, but someone's going to see that I'm visiting. And they'll know I visited this IP address, and they can visit it and say, "Oh, this is a site for journalists to upload their voice recordings. This is going to be juicy. Let's take a look here."
That's why you go to the dark web.
So the dark web is not only not linked, but in a lot of cases, you really can't visit any of that traffic from anywhere unless you're using a special web browser. And there are different ways you could implement this. If you've ever seen some of these, hackery type movies, you might have the idea of the concept of a splinter net, of an alternate internet. It could be operating over totally different cables, it could be operating over the same cables, but working in a different way and just kind of like hiding among the noise. You could technically have something like that. And I could build in my own home, the sort of tooling you'd need, I think, to do a very basic version of that. But I'd be reinventing the wheel. I'd be spending a lot of effort on tooling. Software has to be maintained, and I wrote it. It's probably got bugs. I am not a genius on that stuff. None of us is perfect. So what we got to do is maybe we can reuse what's already there. So that's where like Tor, the onion. Oh yes, and the Tor, the onion router. Yeah. So this idea is you've got, say, 3 nodes. I have to admit, more hardcore among us are probably going to be laughing at me. I can't remember.
Like Node JavaScript? And stuff
no,
like that?
Sorry. By node, I mean like a server, an endpoint.
Data point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I forget if that's in addition to an entry or exit node. I think it is. So I think it's like a total of at least 5 nodes. So,
I don't know if we have a lot of hardcore computer science on this podcast.
You'd probably be the most expert out of all of everyone listening, including us
that's
here.
Fair. Yeah. So basically, my computer connects to this entry node. It's like the bouncer. It gets me into the deep web here, kind of, and then they refer me to to another server inside, and then that server refers me to another, and that server refers me to a third one, and then I'm referred to an exit bouncer, if you will, and that one gets me to my destination. Right. So we're still using the same protocols. We didn't reinvent anything, which means less bugs, probably harder to hack in a lot of ways, harder to observe. But there's still potential downsides. Let's make this in a way that listeners and maybe just I can explain better even.
I like your club analogy.
Yeah. So let's talk about club. Let's suppose, you need the hookup. Let's use something kind of bland here. Let's
cocaine.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't want to lose my job.
That's bland. There's no flavor in that.
Let's suppose.
What kind of cocaine are you using?
Let's suppose I
Egg
want.
and cinnamon. Oh, sorry.
No. Let's suppose I want organic vegetables.
Okay.
How's that? I want no pesticides. I want the good stuff. This is
Okay.
the real hippie organic veggies, homegrown, man.
Yeah.
So like I want these carrots. They're gonna be fantastic for my eyes.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm going in the club, and the bouncer lets me in. I make my way to contact number 1.
Okay.
Contact number 1 identifies me by my secret handshake and refers me to contact number 2. There's another set of handshakes. I go to contact number 3. Handshakes. Contact number 3 points to exit door I never noticed before and says, go through there. I go through, and suddenly I'm at Bob's homegrown farm veggie stall.
Okay.
And I get the stuff, and then I go back through the same way. That's how it works. And someone monitoring the whole thing doesn't necessarily know where I'm going.
Huh.
The club's busy. There's a lot of traffic. And unless you know the handshakes, you're not going to be able to observe my route very well. So this is how it works. But it can be, how I believe it works, how I understand it, for a very reductionist view. But it can be subverted. What if the people doing the handshakes have been corrupted by people who are interested in giving me pesticide produce?
Darn it. What's a shame there's no way to make it so that the people who are doing the handshakes are monitored in a way that they can't corrupt it. Because then that would be a perfect system, right?
Well, you're saying centralize it, huh? But the whole idea is to decentralize
exactly,
it.
Yeah.
I guess the whole idea with like cryptocurrencies and blockchain and encryption there, right?
And and VPNs, of course, too. VPNs, you're trying to decentralize, but in effect, you might be centralizing your traffic. Cryptocurrency is interesting. How do I pay for Bob's fresh market veggies?
Right.
Well, let's make it Keenan's market veggies. How's that?
Okay.
You grew some fantastic carrots in your backyard.
Yeah.
How do I pay for it? Well, I'm on the deep web now. So if I use a credit card, you're not supposed to know my name, man. Yeah. So otherwise, the feds will track down your stall and they'll shut it. Or sorry, not the feds. Sorry, the pesticide companies.
Oh, yeah.
So now I got to find a way to pay you. So what if I could turn U.S. dollars into a different currency and then take that with me and then give you some of that, and then you down the line can turn that currency back into U.S. dollars.
I can. I never understood if somebody
That's what cryptocurrencies are.
Okay, so I can take a coin or Bitcoin or what, and then I go to not Bitcoin itself. I can't go to a bank and say, "Hey, I have this Bitcoin. Give me cash."
Not right now.
That's the whole point, is that it doesn't have anything to do with the banks, because banks centralize.
Right.
Something.
So who gives me the money back? Like, who holds the real money? So that when I ask for my real money back, who gives that to me?
It's called an exchange. An exchange keeps a basic.
There's one called Coinbase.
Yeah,
Coinbase. So I'll put in $10.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll ask after. I'm interrupting.
No, please go for it. You put in $10.
There are likely lots of people listening that have heard of cryptocurrency, of blockchain, of Bitcoin,
I think it's great.
But they're like, because I heard about it back in like 2010, man.
Wish you'd invested,
earlier.
right?
No kidding.
Me too.
So maybe there's a way I can present my question in a way that listeners like myself who may not understand the fully extent of it.
Like you heard about it, but you were like, what is this?
So the thing is, I have $10. I go to this website and I purchase one coin for $10.
Mm-hmm.
This one coin is supposed to represent $10 US. Right?
Right now it's probably on the order of thousands.
And then from there, I look on a particular website. This yerba mate cost one coin. So I go, I have one coin. Philly's selling the yerba mate. I give Philly my coin. He gives me the yerba mate. Philly now goes, I got rid of my yerba mate. I want to take my profit from this coin and put it into my bank account.
Mm-hmm.
So then he says, I want cash now for the coin that I gave him.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives him the cash?
An exchange. One way to look at this, the exchange is in and out. It could be different exchanges, but one way to look at it is just translating to a different currency. Let's suppose I want to pay Phil for something in Canadian dollars for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to a bank. If some banks do foreign exchange conversion, I could go to a special place that does it. Maybe I go to an airport. They might have a counter for that. Either way, I give the bank, say, $500. The bank gives me the equivalent for today in Canadian money.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go to Phil and I pay him whatever he's asked for in Canadian money for our transaction. Maybe Phil goes to you, Keenan, and maybe you fixed his car or something, and he pays you in Canadian cash too. And then maybe you pay your barber for a haircut in this Canadian money. And then where does your barber go? Well, he wants to convert it back to something he can spend like at the local grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back to the bank or to the airport cash counter or whatnot and gets it turned back into US dollars at the exchange rate for that day.
And who does the exchange rate for cryptocurrency?
So that's a good question.
Because you said we can't go to a bank. I can't go to a bank and give them a Bitcoin.
There are places like Coinbase, and Coinbase itself could be a company that's like kind of like with this co-working space. It's a startup. Somebody had some lump sum, and they were like, "We're going to go into business as an exchange."
So people will come in and give them their cryptocurrency, and they'll give them back cash.
Yeah, and just because it's digital money doesn't mean it can be traced back to whatever you purchased previously.
Oh no, that's not my concern. My concern is like, where's all the money coming from? Because
I think you're asking how the exchange rate is calculated, maybe?
Yeah. Or
who has that money?
Who has the physical money? Because if the banks don't have the physical money, dude. somebody who has $1 million does an exchange business.
That the business, that they want to.
But that means that they're hoping that if a ton of people are giving them these digital coins and they're giving them back cash, real cash, that then that company that has all these digital coins can use it to pay for stuff like their employees or get more, like how do they get their real profit if people are handing them digital currency and not real hardcore
that's
cash.
Like a whole movement that's happening right now. This is, as far as I know, there's a whole movement. Like my buddy, he sold his company, and it was one of the first companies to be established on the market for the Ethereum blockchain.
Oh, congrats to your buddy!
Yeah.
We met, didn't we?
Yeah,
I remember him. Now he's a fucking billionaire.
Wow.
Damn it.
People took advantage of they took risk, and it paid off. And they have done a lot of work to get the education out there, because the main challenge with blockchain and cryptocurrencies is that there's a wall of education that is hard for most people to get over. Right now, there's a gap in people's understanding. But at the same time as that's going on, the knowledge movement, they're also trying to create an economy for that currency. Yep. The problem with that is that these currencies, because they are so new, and the exchange rates fluctuate so much. One day, a Bitcoin, a bit of a Bitcoin might be worth $10. Tomorrow, it might be worth $100, and then it might drop right back down. Yeah, because of that, they can't seem to establish enough shops where, like, there are places in New York that you can buy a cup of coffee, by swiping a Bitcoin card that you have.
I've seen that, and in Europe, some grocery stores have you can do cryptocurrency.
In Japan, you can you can pay your utilities in Bitcoin.
Huh. That's amazing.
And so, me as a personal consumer, I guess I don't care as long as there's a place where I can give them my digital coins and they can give me back real cash. But then my question after that would be like, well, then how does that company make profit? Or
they take a cut, just like the bank. The bank, I have to pay the bank to convert either direction. A cut. Everybody gets a cut.
Damn,
because they are. It sucks, but they are assuming some risk.
Yeah.
Because the changes from day to day, the fluctuations in the exchange rate are out of their control. So it could be that if I go to the bank with $500, convert it to Canadian currency, let's say it's exactly on the dot for a dollar. So it's 500 Canadian dollars now. Let's say that Canadian money goes up in value and doubles. And so now I go back to the bank. And I translate back to US. It's $1,000 US. I just made 500.
Right.
They lost money in doing that. And so this sort of arbitrage, this speculation, this is something that they want a piece of, because people are going to do it. It's out there.
For Forex, that's a whole industry.
Forex, exactly.
All these people that follow me on Instagram that are Forex experts that'll teach you how to make money from home. Like,
So this is a thing where people can actually make profit doing
it's been
that
around
stuff.
for a while. Yeah,
Oh,
people
really?
just wait for the exchange rate to be just right, and then they change it back.
In real money or digital currency?
No,
real
money.
really?
In real money,
It's been happening for
people
years.
play speculation games, and I
Wow.
don't encourage it because
Okay,
it's
yeah.
very risky.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the same with cryptocurrency. A lot of people want to get rich. Like,
Mhm.
hey, I heard that so and so,
Got me. Yeah.
a friend of a friend of a friend,
And
is
some
now
people
a billionaire.
did. Some people
They did, and
Yeah.
it still could happen.
Mhm.
I'm not going to argue with that. But the risk that you assume to make it happen is so high. Keenan, you're talking
Yeah.
about where do I take my digital coin and get it translated back?
Yeah.
The thing is, exchanges can go out of business.
Oh.
They might go out of business just as your transaction is going through.
No.
You might
What?
you could lose a lot of money.
Oh,
Meanwhile, if Bitcoin's so volatile that it could go from 4,000 to 8,000 to 19,000 in a matter of months and then down again.
Mm-hmm.
How on earth can you actually trust that if you're keeping the money in that coin that you'll have as much? So it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for someone who wants to set it and forget it and not always keep their eye on the dial.
We need to go back to using rubies in jewelry.
I mean, it's interesting because a lot of people want to go back to the gold standard.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's very similar. There, I read about one, I forget what state it was, but I think they were talking about legislation. I don't think it went through, where you would be able to pay for things like sandwiches, basically anything in the state that you want to pay for. You go into a store to buy clothes, anything. They'd allow not only U.S. currency because they can't prevent that, and because a lot of business will be lost, of course, but they want to encourage people to also pay in precious metals.
What?
Now, suddenly someone's got to make decision on the exchange rate
Yeah.
between the precious, but there are a lot of people who think that that's the way to be.
Huh.
And it's I think surprisingly similar because there is volatility. You discover a new gold mine or a gold mine shuts down, it could change.
Yeah, and
based on scarcity, increase or decrease.
Yeah, and I think it's too late to go back to something that I would consider kind of primitive of exchanging with
The barter
coins and
system
stuff
and
like
all
that.
Mhm.
Because there was obviously less people at the time, less amount of money being thrown around, so you could have sacks of gold coins, whatever, then put one on the table.
There are definitely a couple of movements
Yeah.
right now with like like I have a buddy who works out of here.
They want to bring it back.
He's developing an app for system accounting where he believes that accounting and basing an economy on the laws of physics and nature, like the law of conservation of energy and conservation of mass, should be and one-to-one transactions without actually having a bank, so that there's no speculation on like a reselling of your money. He believes that is the answer to the future as data science grows. And
I've seen stuff like this. There was one site, I forget what it's called, at least one, maybe two I saw, that honestly actually aren't that different from Bitcoin in certain ways. But rather than a cryptocurrency, it's centralized. I mean, it's really in its function all the same. It's like World of Warcraft dollars sort of thing, or Monopoly money, whatever.
Like
money in, as long as you can translate out again.
Exactly.
So but this was different. This was interesting. It was translating it into like service points, and you'd pay people to do services for you with these points. So you wouldn't buy things with it. We do have two things we tend to buy. One is like physical things, like this mug here on the table, my jacket. Then we have services like, will you paint my house? There are products involved, like the paint itself, but in the end, labor is the service.
Interesting.
So this was like, you want to pay someone to paint your house or paint a portrait of you, do headshots, or how about fix your car or something? You'd buy points. Let's say I'd put in $50 for some number of points, and then I could spend them on people's services, and they would cash it out later. Now, that cashed out later is where it can be problematic, and where a business like this could meet some opposition, because it starts to look like you're trying to do an end run around the Fed at that point. If you're in the U.S., the Federal Reserve handles a lot of our monetary policy. So they do not like competing currencies. Someone tried to come up with this Liberty coin, I think it was called. It was like going to be precious metal based, alternative to US currency.
Was that the gold one where it was
I think so.
Gold plated or something?
Something like that. But this Liberty coin was not from the United States Mint. It was from a private mint. But the idea was it had intrinsic value because of the precious metal in it.
Right.
And it was, from people who supported the idea of a gold standard. I believe this person was charged with some very serious federal crimes because they're effectively trying to do an end run. And I mean, look, it makes sense to have centralized currency in some ways because if we can't audit people for money laundering, it can be a lot harder to catch people who are running human trafficking operations or who are poisoning neighborhoods with heroin or whatnot. But at the same time, I understand that this creates all sorts of bureaucracy and reporting requirements. These costs get passed on to us, the people at the end. So I am really interested to see how this landscape evolves. Cryptocurrency to me is not something I've ever gotten into yet.
Same.
But I'm just kind of waiting for the right moment. Maybe there'll be that one thing I really want to use it for. At that time, I might dive in.
I completely sympathize with that point of view because even another buddy of mine who went to school for economics at the London School of Economics.
Okay.
I mean, very unassuming guy, but brilliant. I've sat by with him and listened to people who have made money from selling their Ethereum company or went into blockchain and this. And he, having also worked in Wall Street, he was in acquisitions. He saw it all go down. He also has not gotten into it really. He made a small investment in it, but as far as he's concerned, it's not the right time. And if someone with that much information about finance isn't making a move on that, why should I?
Right, because even if you're successful, you had to assume risk to get there. And that's one of the things in cybersecurity that's a big deal is we have to assume risk for certain things. But how do we make that manageable? How do we get that risk down to a level that is sustainable?
Right. Sustainable risk. I like that. That'll be the name of this episode because I mean,
write it down.
Yeah, no, sustainable risk. I won't forget that.
Yeah, you could also call it risk appetite. That's the term we use.
Risk appetite.
Yeah. So the idea is if I'm getting very corporate here, if I'm in a company, we have a certain level of risk we're dealing with from hackers and computer system failures, things like that. If I'm a cybersecurity or just information security professional, one part of my job is mitigating that risk. We might bring it down to acceptable levels, and I've succeeded at that job as soon as those levels fall within the company's risk appetite. And that's set by management. They say, as a company, we know we have 500 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people depending on us for the food in their mouths and their ability to pay rent, the roof over their heads. And we need to make decisions that fall within a certain level of risk in order to minimize the potential that these people will be out of a job next month. So we put in firewalls, but we aren't going to spend $20 million on a firewall if our assets are only worth like $500, because that's bad business right there. Sure. It's all about balancing the risk.
Yeah. So you're technically like the character from Mr. Robot, right, on Amazon.
I haven't seen this. Everyone tells me I should watch it.
So I've only finished the first season, but even that alone, I think you'd find it enjoyable.
It sounds fascinating.
And to tie back the point I was going to make,
Please.
Risk appetite. I mean, we need to have a certain amount. We need to be able to appreciate a certain amount of risk in our lives in general to accomplish and achieve our dreams.
Yeah,
our goals and dreams, right? And
can I just jump in with the phrase I read online? For anyone who's Finnish out there and says this isn't true, please accept my apologies. I just read this online. Someone said that in Finland, there's an expression that goes to the effect of, well, people have died at home too.
Hey.
Okay.
You got to step out that front door sometimes.
Yeah. You've got to go and chase it, man. You're right. Yeah. And I'm really big on that, mostly because for all my outgoing and gregariousness, there is a lot of, I just have a propensity for doubt. and less of others and more of myself.
I don't know, man.
I know.
Different?
I know that. I know that the way I come across is not that, but that's because every day of my life I overcome it. At some point in the day, I finally overcome it, and but it doesn't always happen in the morning.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen in the morning. And I think that we forget that every day, it's not just every day we have to earn somebody's love, or it's not every day we have to earn somebody's respect.
Yeah.
Or every day we also every day have to overcome ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I'm saying, you know, like risk appetite. That's really, I just find it fascinating that as humans, that is a real thing for us, no matter what industry we're in.
Yeah.
Constantly, nothing risked, nothing earned, or what is it? Nothing ventured, nothing lost,
nothing gained.
Nothing gained. Yeah.
No, that's so true. But we do have an opportunity to improve the way we balance risk. A lot of us do. I think one of the things that I have been going over in my head is that our daily lives are filled with all sorts of risk. Like, let's say you invite a new person to your podcast that you've never met before, Keenan.
I never met you before.
Yeah, you're taking a risk.
See your hands, sir.
You're trusting Phil, who trusted me to behave myself on the show, and I'll find some way to let you guys down, but I'm sure I will. But we call this in information security transitive trust. You're trusting someone who's trusting, and so forth.
Right. Okay.
This is a big deal in everybody's everyday life. You invite someone new to a party. You trust a friend to refer you to a car repair place.
I thought you were going to go the other way. Trusting your friend not to bring like some crazy person.
Yeah,
over.
no. Oh, sorry.
That's
two things.
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
At the party, you trust your friend not to bring someone who doesn't fit at the party, or you trust your friend to give you a recommendation. You trust your family to make good decisions about certain things. Say, but all in all, there are times when we will feel let down. So, are there ways we can help get everyone on the same page about risk without making it boring, without making it a snooze fest, in a way that also doesn't sound paranoid? Because like the people who think like this have historically been relegated to the sidelines. Yeah. And it is true. People have died at home, but we all have an opportunity still to like get a brain cycle going and at least just think before we do something.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is such thing as being overly cautious.
Yes,
analysis paralysis.
And I've been there. I am there frequently. It is one of my big challenges in life that I'm working to overcome, is to get out there and do more stuff.
I'm gonna tell the officer when he pulls me over for drinking and driving, hey, I could die at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of these things. Like, what is the risk that you've misjudged the strength of the drink? It's like people. This is one of these things where I feel like if you get a DUI, say, there's been a failure somewhere, a process failure somewhere. How did you not know the alcohol would affect you a certain way? Is a question that, absent any other information, I
question that right? To every I don't want to give too much away, but I recently saw someone consume too much alcohol and act in a way that was like, are you serious? Like,
sure.
How and why? And then how is it not people know that this person acts like this and like limits it, or, it was, I question that all the time for pretty much everything people do. It's probably pretty much part of my soapbox in the sense that I wonder, how did you not know, being on this planet for so long, information everywhere, movies, television, podcasts, all that stuff. You've had to have known that at a certain moment, people act a certain way when they drink. And you yourself should know that when people tell you, hey, you act a certain way when you drink, you don't go that far, but you do it anyway.
Yeah. Some people don't know their limits.
Some people don't know their limits, but as long as they're at home, a lot of them probably have had opportunities to figure it out. And I'm not saying that everyone here is in exactly the same boat
true.
and always has a chance to figure it out. Sometimes things happen, and I understand that. But I think as a society, we have ways to go in like reinforcing that people can figure out their limits in advance on a lot of stuff and figure out their tolerance for other things. Rather than jump in and buy a house, what's one of the things that kids do if they go off to college? They rent for a bit. They don't just buy a house because they may not have the responsibility to own property yet.
Right.
So they learn about paying money every single month, potentially, even if it's their parents' money. They have to hand in the check. They learn about having to call in to get the dishwasher fixed or whatnot. So at this, we do that transition. I feel like you could do that with a lot more things, like before marijuana is decriminalized in your area. Well, before you have just as much as your friend who's been doing it for a while has. Why don't you try to introduce yourself slowly if that's something
Take
you really want to do?
You don't have to,
That's what Joe did for me, because I not until like 2 years ago. I'm 35. Did I ever even try weed? So even after, I think it was after, maybe a year or so after California was like loosening up. Then I even tried it, but not like hardcore. So it wasn't one of those situations where just because it became legal, I started doing a shit ton of it.
Yeah.
Different case for alcohol though, but yeah, it was. But even for alcohol, it wasn't until I was 23. So way after the legal limit.
And was it a risk thing for you? You were just like, I don't know what's at
It was
stake
actually
here?
by accident. Somebody ordered a drink, or I ordered a drink that I thought was non-alcoholic, and it turns out it had alcohol in it. I looked at my friend. I was like, "This tastes awful."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, because there's alcohol in it." Yeah. I was like,
I feel kind of groovy.
Yeah. I had alcohol well before I had coffee. I hated coffee till I was like late teens.
Yeah.
But, growing up Jewish, I had a bar mitzvah. And of course, there was a big bottle of Manischewitz left over. So, this stuff's sweet. I was actually told by my dad, who said that it's, and I tell you this with a grain of salt. I haven't verified this, but it's illegal to make Manischewitz in California, despite our wine culture and wine grapes here. Because of that wine culture, which they add so much sugar to stop the fermentation. It's not really wine anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a sugary drink.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever had Manischewitz, if you've ever gone to a bar mitzvah or something.
No.
Very sweet grape wine. They have a Loganberry one too. You can get it in any grocery store near you.
Okay.
It's a crucial part of the bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah experience.
Is it a good drink?
How much percentage of alcohol? Like, is it?
That's what I was asking.
I don't actually know the ABV on that one, but I mean, it is enough that if you could get a little bit. I mean, it's not, like, I don't think it's, 18, 20%, but it's still, but yeah, it's like, there was that. And then, I went to a comedy show, I think it was when I was in my teens. Or maybe it was a restaurant. And one of the things, I just saw on the menu was like a Godiva chocolate liqueur drink. Now, liqueur is very sweet.
It has a liquor in it,
and it can be very strong too. So I'm like, let's try this. No, you know what I think it might have been? It might have actually been at a friend's house that they had some. Anyway, however it happened, I got it and I was like, this is good. It's like Hershey's syrup on steroids here. So I asked my parents to buy me some, and they did. I was contributing to the delinquency of a minor, maybe. But you know what? I turned out okay, and I think the statute of limitations has expired on that.
Yeah, there's totally. That's probably one of the healthier ways to get introduced to any kind of thing that you're going to experience at some point as an adult. Talking about managing risk is if you get an opportunity to responsibly introduce your child to something that may be an adult activity later, it's better that you had a hand in showing them, like, what tolerance looks like and things like that. You know what I mean?
Because most people would really protect their kids and like shoo them away. And then that just encourages them more to do that when they get free of that
take me as a case, right? So just as to revisit an example,
a basket case.
Sorry,
I'm just kidding, Phil. I love you, Phil.
Finally, we got the guest to go against one of the hosts.
So every guest always goes against Keenan.
They always give me
this
shit.
Is good. You know what it is though, is because this episode has been different in this dynamic where Keenan hasn't been saying as much to warrant that kind of shit talking. But suffice to say, from the ages of 14 to about 18. Growing up with my cousin Joe and his brother Danny, I was exposed to everything. Man.
Yeah,
because they were like 21 and 18, and they were free per se.
Oh, okay.
And so I was under their supervision per se. And so by the time I got to the age of 18, I sort of drank everything I could, smoked everything I could. I drank it out of my system
at once.
All at once. All those years to the point where even to this day, it doesn't really call my attention. I may indulge here and there. I don't actually on a regular basis, but I can live without it comfortably. And I know that a lot of people, my big fear that holds me back socially is that I don't particularly enjoy going to bars or clubs or anything or lounges, because what am I going to do there? Spend $8 over what I should on a glass of whatever. It just, for me, I'm like, wow, this is probably the worst use of our money, but probably the best use of our time. I don't know, and I just feel like a lot of people are indulging in this, and it sucks because it's not that I have a moral stance on whether people should drink or not. I always like to say, I feel like it saddens me that is the pinnacle of our ability as adult humans in terms of like being able to feel like we're mitigating the risk of being embarrassed at the fact that we're not perfect, and this is the way we can excuse ourselves from being perfect, and now let's be friends.
Wow. That's deep, Phil.
I just feel like,
that's
wow.
deep. Yeah.
That's what she said.
So what I think I'm here. But it took me a second. Oh boy. So, what I think I'm hearing is it sounds like a pretty strong accusation, Phil, that humans are filling the void with these substances to feel better about themselves around other people.
That's it's. I feel
for
like
the most part,
I feel like that's what it is, man. Because it uninhibits you suddenly. Suddenly you're like, hey, you know what? I'm not okay. You're not okay. We're okay. And it's like, but we already know that to begin with. Yeah. But like we don't. It's like everyone gives no one a license not to be perfect.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually find I do my best on the floor dancing and karaoke when I'm stone cold sober.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay.
And I am always consistently the odd person out on that front. But for some reason, I like getting lost in the, facing the enormity of I'm about to get in front of a bunch of people and do something that makes me look like I'm just flapping my arms or doing something silly,
Okay, yeah.
So I'm like, let's it's almost like a high, a natural high, get used to and start craving. And if I have some alcohol that loosens my inhibitions or something, I don't get as much of that, so I stay away from it.
Exactly.
But,
Exactly. And I feel that a lot of people have traded in what would be a euphoria that would happen naturally from taking that risk of not being perfect in front of someone. Entrepreneurs know this. That's why they continue to be entrepreneurs.
Interesting.
Because they know they're going to fail. That's the whole point. People who are afraid of public speaking, like a good public speaker has failed more times than you can possibly care to fail. The whole point is to fail. The whole point is to fail a little less through the progression till you reach a point where it's not that you won't fail, but that you won't get it wrong. Okay. Meaning, even if it's not a complete failure, at least you didn't get it completely wrong.
So I've heard similar advice. Like if you're planning to go with a startup, one bit of advice I read that's probably from someone famous, so I'm not giving you credit, whoever you are, said that if you're going with a startup, make sure the founders had a startup before and make sure that startup has failed.
Absolutely.
You do not want a successful previous founder, this person said, because if they had a successful exit and on the first try, they got lucky. They didn't learn anything significant in the process, this person says.
That could be said about relationships, man.
That's really interesting.
Because until you've had one where you were the one that totally did your best and it turned to shit anyways, no matter how many times you try to continue and make it better, the point is that you walk away from there now with things that you wouldn't have walked away from if the person who got shit on was you, or vice. So for both.
How many times did you get shit on before you met your wife?
Well, that's a funny thing. I was actually just
Using
thinking about
Philly's
that.
analogy.
Liz is the first person I've ever dated, and I'm the
Really?
first person she's ever dated, and we've been together.
That's a rarity to
13
have
years.
both
Yeah.
of you in that situation.
Hey,
It's very weird. I don't know.
There's
how-
exceptions.
Oh, rare,
to
rare,
every
not
rule.
weird. Rare.
Oh
I
yes,
couldn't do my R's.
it's rare. Sorry, honey.
Yeah.
there's exceptions to every
Yeah.
rule. You know,
Yeah.
there are people again, and one would hope that that's what you come across. There are people who are committed to the continued development of their self, and who continue that even in a relationship, and who work with people who are also continue to the continuous development of themselves, and somehow you parallel each other.
That's why it
Yes,
helps out.
develop-
Because if she was, if she has dated or been with more people more than you, there might be an imbalance. Even if the roles are reversed. If you
Oh yeah.
had a lot more experience dating girls and she hasn't had a lot of experience dating guys, there's not an advantage, but there is sort of a teetering to that one side. Using Philly's example and analogy and reasoning is that you have the more experience, you have the more know-how and how to supposedly handle certain
Right, like
situations.
dating at a different ages. Like if the gap is too big, for
Now
example.
wait a minute, let's talk about that for a second. No, just kidding.
Yeah, he
I
was
won't
like,
date
is that-
young. I don't know.
Oh
No.
my.
Yeah.
No, but right, like some people are more established in their life.
Yeah.
There's an interesting age between the ages of like let's say 21 up until even 25, and then from 25 up to 30. There are incredible developments that take place in someone's life. Now, exceptions to any rule, right? But for the most part, there is a trend that people establish in stages, and by the time you're 30, you generally tend to have a sense of establishment. There are outliers, but you have a sense of establishment that you can't really expect from someone who's 21, 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there are some things that really only come with time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Liz and I were both open to a lot of, the feedback we ended up getting out of the relationship.
Mhm.
We both were very interested in developing ourselves, and we had a similar trajectory. We're both getting into the job market. We're
Mhm.
both interested in working in knowledge-based fields. She's a librarian.
Okay.
And I work in tech. So we both deal with a lot of information on a daily basis. So that also meant we had stuff to share, but our
Yeah.
experiences were different enough that it kept it interesting. It keeps it interesting. She often teaches information literacy instruction classes. This is helping students figure out how to find the information they need in a database
Mhm.
that might have a lot of articles. And oftentimes the students are like, why can't I just use Google? Well, what's wrong with Google? And this is a fantastic opportunity for her to explain to them that,
Yeah.
Google can get you the start on your answer, but you need details, you need quotes, you need
Yeah.
primary sources. But then it creates a fun dynamic. It's just an example, a little tangent here, because as someone who works in tech, I've done programming, I've done network work, on computer networks. I've done, policy work, compliance, basically all this whole gamut. And the one thing they all have in common is we use Google very heavily. That is,
yeah.
and oftentimes it's just the first result solves the problem for us.
Yeah.
So some of these students might be on the right page, but seriously, listen to your professor and your information literacy instructor if
And
they
his
tell you to
wife.
look at a database. Please,
Yeah.
my very existence might depend upon it.
Happy wife, happy life. Well, and with that, we actually get to the to what's called the soapbox segment, where, and I think I had mentioned this to you before
Yeah.
previously, and we always hand it off to the guests, but just to lay the platform down, as we always do traditionally speaking, is you get to talk about whatever you want for an elongated period of time, however you see fit, and this is sort of your broadcast to the world, whatever you want to say. It can be short, doesn't have to be long.
Sure.
But you can, usually people prepare. You don't have to. I never do. And Keenan usually has a stockpile of things he can throw at us.
Oh, that's great.
So we'll go you, then Keenan, and then myself, and we'll close out the show.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you both for having me on today.
Thank
This
you
is
for coming.
Oh, thank you. This is really exciting. Phil, I'm glad to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Keenan, I'm really pleased to meet you. I love the dynamic y'all have here. I really enjoyed listening to some of your previous shows, and I'm looking forward to getting caught up by jumping back.
Thank
A
you.
lot of really interesting stories and information. It's just easy to listen to. And I feel like they're just grabbing little bits about the human experience, which is a lot of fun. Again, someone with an anthropology background, it's like, getting a peek behind the curtain of humanity and what makes us human. And you all aren't afraid to address that.
Yeah. I'm going to clip that.
There we go.
Yeah, go on. Though.
Sure. If I'm going to stump for myself here, I am starting a podcast against Phil's better judgment.
That's what it's called? Against Phil's better judgment?
No. Phil tried to advise me against, but I'm calling it Paradise and the Abyss. And it's a line from a book it's part of a line from a book called Foucault's Pendulum, about a guy who gets in over his head on perhaps uncovering a conspiracy. But I like that it references this novel that I really like. And I feel like risk and risk management and the human condition factors heavily. I want to focus on offbeat mix of anthropology, philosophy, general geeking out on old cryptography. If that sounds boring, don't worry. I'm not talking about modern computers. I'm talking about talking history. A lot of cryptography is like field ciphers from a few hundred years ago even. These people in courts of European monarchs might come up with a system to encode communications that could have big ramifications on the battles of the day, on just correspondence between people. One person came up with his own cipher to, this was Sir Francis Beaufort, or maybe Beaufort. Anyway, he came up with his own variant on an older cipher to hide some very deep personal secrets that he felt were very shameful. You can read up on this on Wikipedia if you're interested, but the point is, while the mechanics of the cipher might not be that interesting, although you can do it in your head if you want, the fact that he was doing this and why is the sort of thing that I'd love to geek out on, because again, it goes to why humans feel the need to act a certain way, why society pushes them to act a certain way. And so it's kind of like all these things, and people have died at home. That would have been a good name for the whole thing too.
We could do that one.
Yeah,
actually.
it could be a comma.
Yeah.
Unsustainable, sustainable risk.
No.
People
So
died
risk
at home.
appetite. People have died at
risk
home.
appetite.
Yeah.
Risk appetite's a good
That's
one.
why I wrote it down, because it was sustainable risk.
Well, yeah, but then he suggested
changed
that, and it
it?
makes more because it's the actual term.
Oh,
Yeah, it is a term.
fine.
But we, in all cases, I'd like to make this relevant to people. I don't want it to just be like tech journalism. I'd love to make something that you guys would feel comfortable listening to on a regular basis. I'd love to make something that my mother or my wife and my friends, many of whom are not in tech, would be interested in listening to. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm still developing my scripts and whom I want to interview, but the goal is to keep it accessible and approachable, because I think too much of information security is locked up in the ivory tower right now. It's either people have taught themselves fully, about all this deep hacker lore, or people in suits and companies. And the things, I think there's a lot that's, I alluded to this earlier, that's relevant to our everyday lives in security. And I think that if we'd applied some of these concepts, we could all be safer, and we could also have more experiences, because we'd have an idea, like when self-doubt holds us back, we'd have frameworks for guiding us. And like, well, I know that this theme park had an accident on its roller coaster last year. I'm kind of scared about getting on a roller coaster now. You can approach it from a cybersecurity, information security, risk management perspective, and kind of work through, how much risk are you assuming, and think about who's accountable for the risk. Someone's going to be accountable. So if you get hurt, you may well walk away with some sort of settlement too. So, you have protections in place. I also think it's really important from everybody coming together perspective. Phil, I think you were alluding earlier to Twitter getting very polarized.
Yeah.
And with politics.
Facebook too. Yeah.
Facebook. Social networking in general makes it so easy to broadcast ideas in the spur of the moment without even thinking about the people we're addressing, that people just do it. And what happens is relationships fall apart. Friendships fall apart. People get very extreme. Some people get closer together, which is good. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, maybe. But in the end, if we actually approached our own political positions, no matter where we are on the spectrum, I don't care what you call yourself, a liberal, a conservative, a progressive, a libertarian, a communist, any of these terms, which, by the way, are all very vague. But yeah, start analyzing it. What do I mean when I say I'm an X or I'm in favor of X? You think about what risks we face if we implement a particular solution to a problem, because no solution solves everything. But I'm not taking a stance on a political position right here, but one thing that does get a lot of talk and is relevance to Silicon Valley venture capitalists is the idea of a universal basic income. Everybody gets something. The thing is, what almost nobody talks about, at least that I've heard, is how it would be implemented and sustainably. So we can say, let's give everybody, some stipend every month, or let's give everybody certain services every month. And this is fantastic. I love this brainstorming. Let's talk about how we can make society better, but also think about the risks. What if you hand someone $1,000 every month? What if you hand everybody? What's going to happen? Well, one thing that could happen is the landlords might raise prices by $1,000 every month. Right. There you go. Get their cut. Well, of course, we have rent control, which helps in a lot of cases. And, maybe more for those of us who are lucky enough to own a house and have a mortgage, this is also, it's not just going to go up, but people are going to be wanting their cut, just like these Bitcoin exchanges. So you got to think about the risks, the unintended side effects. No solution is a panacea that solves everything. There's a lot of utopian thinking in different political circles. And the problem is they ignore that some percentage of humans, maybe 2, maybe 4%, maybe more, are narcissistic, sociopathic, some combination. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not qualified to make diagnoses on this, and sociopath isn't even an official diagnosis. But the point is, there are people, some percentage of the population naturally gravitates towards self-interest. It doesn't have to mean that it's bad. Like sociopaths, as we might call them, they like to be heroes a lot of the time. They don't feel fear, many of them. And I'm speaking very broad generalizations, but guess who we could really benefit from having these people in? And many of them could do very well as firefighters. I've heard that some do get into firefighting, and they get the glory. It becomes win-win. They save lives. They rush in. They get a rush maybe. So the point is that there is good that can be done, but we need to take into account that there are a lot of people who are going to act out of self-interest. And so any solution we put into place, whether it's universal basic income or something else, has to account for the fact that there's a lot of people that are going to try to get their cut at the expense of everyone else. And I feel like if we could slow down on our polarization, slow down on how much we are pushing for our solution is going to solve the problem and clean up, save the world, and take into account, well, let's really get into the edge cases, because it is likely that someone's going to try to subvert it, whatever solution it is, and figure out that. I get the feeling a lot of people would start to see, oh, that's kind of what my opponent is zeroing in on right now when they say my idea is full of it. And maybe we can start building bridges instead of barriers between each other and kind of calm the tensions that have really polarized this country. And frankly, I feel like the whole world right now. So that's my stump for risk management, risk awareness being more of a part of the general consciousness. One other little stump, here's someone acting in their self-interest. I also run a small consultancy called Kumbaya Ops. If you, I am interested in applying soft skills to help organizations and people, along with hard skills, that is, organizations and people figure out their security or technology operations stuff. So you feel free to visit my website. Phil, maybe I can hand that to you.
Yeah, just send it over to me. I'll put it in the description.
Thanks. I appreciate that. But with that, I want to turn back to thank you both for having me on. I've had a fantastic time. And
went by quick, didn't it?
Yes, it did. This was a lot of fun. Thank you both.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Keenan, your soapbox?
I think you could, if you stick with the example of the club, when we're doing the cryptocurrency and the homegrown food produce.
Yeah.
I think that can be a great thing for your podcast if you're looking for ideas.
Thanks.
To make it relevant and knowledgeable, because that example was like, oh, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
Cool. Thank you. Good feedback.
It's just that I'll understand that more than the real technical jargon.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I veer off into that. Working on it.
That's fine. That's fine. I wanted to give a major shout out because we were shown a ridiculous amount of love from Josh.
Who?
Did I get the name wrong again? God dang it.
Jeff and Liz?
Jeff. Jesus, I don't know why I said Josh. See, I'm still hungover. Jeff and Liz.
Major shout out to Jeff.
Major shout out to you two, because you showed us, me and Philly, some crazy amount of love that I was like, dang, I felt like
a superstar.
Yeah, they made me feel great. You made me feel ridiculously good, and I'm pretty sure if Joe was there,
he got a little chubby down there.
I did.
Oh my!
I was pitching a tent, and it wasn't even cold outside. So,
oh boy,
my ego was stroked pretty nicely, and I just want to give a shout out to say thanks, and thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
My official soapbox is, again, people are assholes.
Here it is.
And I was at a gas station on Century in Inglewood by where the new stadium's getting built. And there's an In-N-Out Burger and all that stuff. Anyway, I pull into the gas station. There's open spaces everywhere. Some were taken. This lady was in front of me. We pull in roughly the same time. I want to say I got there first, but I couldn't tell if she was pulling into a gas stop or not. So I put on my signal and then pull in to the spot. I go my business. She then passes by me, so I thought she was done. She comes around and pulls over to the other side of the gas that's on the opposite side of me. And then as I'm putting my gas, she has the audacity to then call me out and first make me look stupid by saying, do you know what you were doing or what you did? Or couldn't you have seen me that I was going in the same spot? And she had like this smirky smile, I was in the wrong. And then I was like, it stopped me for a second because I wanted to like go over there and give her 5 across the eye, but I know I couldn't do that. And I then said, and as calmly as I could, I couldn't tell if you were pulling the spot or not. And then she went on to justify my wrong actions again by calling me out as like, how can you not see or notice that I was like, well, my final statement was, well, you should have put on your signal. And then that didn't register in her head because she didn't put on a signal. I had no idea. That's why I put on my signal. And then she continued to attack me more, by calling me out as someone who shouldn't do that. And I just kept saying, you should just put on your signal. And then as I finished up, I was like, and she was walking away. I'm not sure if you get those kind of people that like laugh when they walk away, like they couldn't believe this guy's doing what he's doing. So I was like, next time put on your signal, maybe that won't happen. And so I get in my car and drive away. There was plenty of open spots in this gas station. And there's no way for me to tell which side of the gas entry is on our car.
Sure.
I'm not a, specialist in, auto mechanics and cars and where they're at. So, a couple weeks later, or maybe this might have been a few days ago when I came up here, I go to another gas station in roughly the same area. It's taken, most of the spots are taken up. People are waiting in line. I'm sitting there waiting for my spot. One person comes in and pulls into the open spot I was going to take. Didn't even look, don't even care, nothing. Another person tries to take another spot, but was thwarted by somebody else. Then I see an open spot and I jam on my gas to go and take that one spot was open because these other two people are trying to take it too. So in my mind, I couldn't help but think back to this person that was giving me shit for stealing her spot when there's plenty of open spots. And here I am in a position where there's only one spot and people are stealing it like mad crazy. It just pisses me off on the dynamics of that. I just wish there was like a little box that I could press a button on to put that person in the scenario that I see where they call me out on to see if they could handle that same situation. Probably why I'm calm on most stuff, because I get put in all these crazy moments where people on the left tell me one thing, people on the right tell me one thing, and they don't seem to experience the same thing I do. But my soapbox officially ends by calling her an asshole because she's an asshole. And I hope she gets her car tires popped. But not die or any accident, just damaged. And she has to replace them like, was it like $500-$600 to replace your tires or something like that?
That can be expensive.
Yeah. I hope you have to pay $600 for your tires.
Wow.
And then shout out to my supporters.
I'd like to thank baby Jesus Christ.
Now, see, I don't hang out with them that often, so I don't hear their names that much. It's Jeff and Liz. Yeah. I need to hang out with, because I don't know their names.
And this is Andrew.
Andrew. And you're Philly or
and
Phil.
Philly,
Okay.
Phil, yeah. Philly Phil.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, first of all, Andrew, thank you for coming through, man. I hope you had a great time.
Thank you. I did.
It's been amazing, and as I expected, you definitely did disappoint. No pressure. I already knew you were gonna do just fine. You know, I can't think of a single time we had a conversation where I even had the time to think to myself, I'm not enjoying this. Never. I've never had that thought, and it's rare that I do have that thought. So when I definitely don't enjoy a conversation with someone, I remember that person. You know what I mean? So yeah, thank you for coming through. I'm sure that the listeners were like, damn, I need to learn more stuff.
Especially about digital stuff. Yeah.
And you know, it's true. There is a digital divide. And that is something that I'm sad we didn't get into. But the good news is that people can turn to your podcast to bridge that gap in a lot of ways by actually beefing up their history. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, make sure you send me the links and I'll be able to put it in the description. And as usual, I don't prepare a soapbox, but I always ask myself, what am I currently experiencing and how can that be valuable to other people? And the truth is, I'm in a weird place right now where I want to feel selfish because I feel that I have been rather giving in recent days and times, and it was almost as if it didn't go appreciated, for lack of a better term. And what I find is that I think there's an even more important lesson than sometimes you just got to take care of yourself instead of other people. I think it's okay sometimes in life to not exactly know what your position is, but to ensure that you still continue to live to the best of your ability as a good person, regardless of whether or not you know if you want to be all about yourself or all about others or what have you. I think sometimes you just have to roll with the punches, regardless of how uncertain you feel about what the next step of your life is going to be. I think you should continue as planned, as whatever original mission you had, because, and I'm speaking a lot to like what my own plan is, right? Because things happen in life that you're not going to expect, and plans are going to go the way you hopefully intended them to. And I think the best, because like as you mentioned earlier, Andrew, there's no one solution that solves all problems. But if there's anything you can do is to be prepared for things to change, and don't be so surprised when things do change because you had to have been prepared for it. And even if you aren't prepared, at the very least, know that you have been able to overcome things before. You were fine before, you'll be fine after. So long as you do your best, one foot forward in front of the other, one at a time, one day at a time, and eventually you'll reach a place of equilibrium. So if anybody out there is experiencing anything like I am, the best thing you could do is stay calm, keep your cool, and just keep doing good things. It doesn't mean that you have to suddenly become selfish, which is what I want to do, because that's a reactive thing. And it does also mean, though, that you should learn from the signals that you now have in your arsenal to identify when things aren't necessarily in your best interest. So there is such a thing as learning as quick as possible. But it doesn't mean that you have to change who you are at the core as a person, which is what I was fearing I was going to have to do because of how I interpreted the way I was treated. At the end of the day, it's not the truth. No matter how you look at it, I think it was Einstein that said, tell me, I'm butchering it here, so I'm just going to paraphrase. Tell me what you think the truth is. No, your ship. What? Yeah, this is the first time. Yeah, what you claim to be the truth will be shipwrecked by the laughter of the gods, because essentially you don't know what the truth is. You have your interpretation of it. They have their interpretation of it. They meaning the proverbial whoever the person is you may have a problem with, or group. And at the end of the day, everybody is going to immediately turn to the victimization position. But the truth is that the only way to win in life is to stop putting yourself in a position of victimization and to start, because it's not productive. All it does is enable you to allow things to be as they are and to continue to be as they are. And it's sort of like a feedback loop of hell, when all you have to do is say, you know what? I probably did something too. No matter how thin you slice it, there's two sides to every piece of bread. And all you got to do is say, well, if they don't want to continue this because it's clear they don't, or I don't want to continue this because it's clear I don't, or I don't want to pursue this path anymore, or whatever it's going to be, long story short, you got to keep moving and you got to stay calm.
Nice. There we go.
Peace. It's the new podcast. We got anthropological jazz, and we can't stop. We came to chat that ass with the podcast. I'm not going to go on the longer because it was a good episode.
Come on. We were doing it right here. That was the best one yet. Oh, my God.
I'm also long-winded, have had 4 hours of sleep. And so
the last 3 guests didn't even...
No, it was legit. It was legit.
He was right on cue. Fine. Closing remarks then. Eat your woman out.
Joe isn't here, so I'll say his. Suck your man's dick. And also vote for me for president. Any closing remarks?
Fight not with monsters, lest ye become one yourself.
Hey. Hey-o.